This is Mary of the Anchorage, Alaska Memories Club.
And this is Mike. In this edition, we're looking at Anchorage radio memories, favorite DJs, and shows. Do you remember those wonderful days when you listened to your favorite Anchorage, Alaska radio personalities? Sometimes you listened at home. Maybe you were tuned in with your car radio. And who could forget that nifty invention called the portable transistor radio? You could take that with you just about anywhere. Here's an anonymous reader who remembers the following. Sitting here with my coffee in hand, I started thinking about a long time ago. I used to wait in my bedroom until the Scotty Ferguson show would come on the radio on KFQD. The music was so good, and I really got a kick out of his commercials. There was the soft drink team, whose jingle I can still sing, and there was Gerald McBoing Boing. I remember when the show ended, Gardner Ted Armstrong would follow. I listened to Reuben Gaines all the time. He had a way of making you feel things were good. It was a wonderful time to grow up in Alaska.
Did you know? When KFQD Radio went on the air on May 24th, 1924, it wasn't just a first for Anchorage. They were also the first radio station in Alaska. And here's a note. The station's call letters, KFQD, don't mean anything. They were assigned randomly.
24 years after KFQD began broadcasting, Cap Lathrop, the owner of the 4th Avenue Theater, also built the second radio station in Anchorage, Alaska, KENI Radio, which began broadcasting on May 2, 1948, from inside the 4th Avenue Theater building, later moving into its own building.
Did you listen to The Coke Show, hosted by Ron Moore, on KENI Radio? You could call in, request a song, and dedicate it to your friends. The Coke Show originated from a small radio booth on the roof of the Bun Drive-In. And remember when the cars in the parking lot would beep their horns? Ron called them honker bonkers.
Do you remember Muckluck Telegraph? Remember how you could connect with Alaskans who were in remote areas? The radio station would broadcast your messages. Grandma Robbie has a comment.
We also used the Muckluck Telegraph to contact friends who homesteaded at Sunshine near Talkeetna.
The KENI radio program, Muckluck Telegraph, was a great service for Alaska audiences. Mary of Anchorage Memories recalls that her family used Muckluck Telegraph to communicate with other family members at their commercial fishing site at Point Possession across Cook Inlet from Anchorage.
Everyone used Muckluck Telegraph to communicate with family while we were going back and forth to our commercial fishing site during the summer. People in places like Tyonek, Chickaloon, and Point Possession all relied on Muckluck Telegraph.
Because that type of radio program was such a well-received community service, other Anchorage radio stations had their own versions. Here's one, North Winds on KHAR. Jim remembers this. In 1959-1961, my father was assigned to Fort Richardson. Around dinner time, there was a regular radio program, probably out of Anchorage, that preceded or followed announcements from people on the grid to homesteaders beyond routine contact. Here's what it sounded like. For Bob and Sue on Triple Creek, arrived safely, baby boy 7 pounds 6 ounces, mom doing fine, home on the 13th. The program that followed, something like Tales of the Tundra, Jack London-like sourdough stories, were read by a man over a background of the song Claire de Lune or other mood music. And here's a note. The show that followed North Winds was hosted by Reuben Gaines, a favorite Anchorage radio personality.
When you listened to his radio program, you heard Reuben, a fellow named Six-Toed Mordecai, Mrs. Malone, Chilkoot Charlie, and a few others. Each one had a strong voice and distinct personality, and Reuben Gaines had created every one of them in his very creative mind and brought them to life with his incredible vocal talent. As you listened to Reuben's show, you couldn't help but be amazed at how he seamlessly weaved his characters in and out of conversations. And speaking of conversations, his radio program, Conversations Unlimited, was heard in the afternoon on KHAR Monday through Friday to the absolute delight of Anchorage audiences. His theme song was Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy.
And we remember Chilkoot Charlie. Of all of Reuben's characters, one became the namesake for a local bar. Now known the world over, Chilkoot Charlie's, sometimes just referred to affectionately as Coots, in Spinard, has the following bar motto: "We cheat the other guy and pass the savings on to you." Oh, the memories. Cabin fever in the winter, fun times in the summer. Local Anchorage radio kept us connected, entertained, and informed, and we all had our favorite local radio personalities. What a great episode of the Anchorage, Alaska Memories Club. Do you remember your favorite Anchorage radio personalities? Until next time, Mike and Mary, the Anchorage, Alaska Memories Club.